Welcome to Part 2 of the NetReflector webinar series on Voice of the Customer. My name is Peter Gurney and I'm the Senior Director for VOC Solutions at NetReflector, which is a full-service customer insights firm specializing in enterprise feedback systems and Voice of the Customer programs. In the first session, VOC Basics, we offered some definitions, discussed sources and methods for gathering and analyzing VOC, and shared a few ideas for getting started with the VOC program. In this second session, VOC Applications, we'll look in more detail at how VOC is used in organizations and who uses it. We'll also discuss some of the tools and reporting techniques that you might want to consider, and we'll share tips and best practices for applying VOC data effectively. Then in the final session, VOC Programs, we'll look at how you can get VOC up and running in your own organization, what resources you'll need, how to get buy-in from stakeholders, and how to get stakeholders to take effective action on the results. Let's begin with a short review of some points that were covered in the VOC Basics session. We said that Voice of the Customer refers to anything that customers say to your organization or about your organization. It doesn't matter how or where they choose to say it, whether it's through a survey, a phone call, an email, or an online rating, it's all Voice of the Customer. The purpose of a VOC program is to gather this information, interpret it, and apply it in a way that benefits both your organization and your customers. VOC comes in many forms, but it generally falls into three main categories. First, there are the cases in which we reach out to customers through surveys, focus groups, depth interviews, customer panels, and other traditional market research methods. Second, there are the cases in which customers reach out to us. They do this by calling, emailing, filling in comment cards, or sending letters. The third category is when customers reach out to other customers or to potential customers. It includes rating sites, blogs, community forums, and social media like Facebook and Twitter. It also includes word of mouth, where customers talk about their experiences face-to-face with friends and family. In the first session, we mentioned a variety of ways that this information is used. And we said that before launching a VOC program in your organization, it's a good idea to be very specific about how and where you want to apply the information. That way you can build the optimal set of features and capabilities into the program from the beginning. With data coming from so many sources and in so many forms, getting a handle on all your customer feedback can be challenging. However, if you funnel that information so that it serves very targeted needs for specific stakeholders, it starts to make sense and it becomes easier to get a handle on it. We mentioned 6 ways that VOC is typically applied in organizations: monitoring key metrics, providing alerts for service recovery, rewarding and recognizing employees, supporting continuous improvement initiatives, supplying content for internal training and culture building, and providing data for in-depth analysis and deep dives. We're going to look at each of these applications in more detail now and discuss who the principal users of these methods are. Most companies with VOC programs monitor a few key metrics which they review on a periodic basis. This is a good way to keep a pulse on the health of the customer relationship, spot emerging trends and track their progress, and to see how customer satisfaction relates to other business metrics like sales volume and market share. It's also a good way to compare your results to competitive benchmarks and industry norms. It's fairly easy to display VOC monitoring information in the form of a dashboard where several key metrics can be viewed side by side in graphical form. These dashboards are typically used by executives and strategic leaders as part of their oversight of the business. In many cases, dashboards are also shared with line managers, showing just the information that pertains to their level of the organization. So what metrics should you be monitoring? Typically, you would want to combine high-level indicators from a variety of VOC sources, such as surveys, contact centers, and social media. It's also a good idea to complement these VOC metrics with a few operational and sales indicators. Average customer satisfaction is probably the most common, although many companies use a loyalty index instead. Loyalty indexes are calculated from a combination of measures, like customer satisfaction, willingness to recommend, and likelihood to repurchase. Net promoter scores are also common. These are calculated by subtracting the percentage of low ratings from the percentage of high ratings on a scale that measures a customer's likeliness to recommend the company. key drivers are customer ratings that have a significant influence on overall satisfaction. Things like fast service, friendly staff, or clean restrooms. These drivers are usually determined through statistical analysis. They make up a sort of recipe for satisfaction. So by monitoring them, you can see if you're making progress in the areas that matter most to customers. Your volume of customer complaints is a good VOC metric to track, as well as the top reasons for complaints. You can see how those reasons trend and whether new topics are rising to the top. It's a good idea to monitor complaint resolution rates as well, particularly first call resolution. So notice that the metrics we've discussed so far reflect the first two categories of VOC, our reaching out to customers and customers reaching out to us. You can also include metrics around customers reaching out to other customers. For example, you can list top trending topics from social media, along with the volume and sentiment of the conversations occurring. We also recommend including a few business metrics that are not directly related to voice of the customer, but that reflect customer behaviors that result from taking action on VOC data. This could include retention rates, new customer accounts, sales volume or market share. All of these metrics can be valuable. The trick is to choose the few that are the most impactful to your organization, that have the least redundancy among them, and that tell the most compelling story about how well you're progressing in your customer experience strategy. The second way to use VOC data is to create an alert system that identifies dissatisfied customers so you can get back to them and fix the problem. There are various ways to get these alerts. For example, you can identify customers who gave you low satisfaction ratings on a survey. You can also do searches of customer comments to identify trigger words and phrases like angry or unhappy or calling my lawyer. Also, customer service agents can tag calls and emails that they think require a follow-up if the customer seemed dissatisfied. There are generally 4 components to an effective alert system. First, you have to be able to identify dissatisfied customers along with their contact information. Second, this information needs to be relayed quickly to someone in the organization who's accountable for following up. Next, there needs to be a way to track the details of the follow-up to make sure that some action was actually taken. Finally, there should be a system for recording the outcome of the action so that you can continuously learn and improve your service recovery process. Alert systems are usually used by operations staff and line managers, people who deal closely with customers and are trained in service recovery. The Aberdeen Group did a study in 2012 to see which VOC uses are most effective. They compared market growth rates between companies who use VOC in various ways to companies that don't use those methods. And the method that stood out as the most effective was automated alerts. Notice that the use of VOC dashboards is well down the line in this graph. So an alert system is definitely a smart way to use voice of the customer data. This makes intuitive sense. When you follow up with customers to solve problems, it makes them less likely to leave and sends a message that your company cares about their business. All of this leads to greater loyalty and positive word of mouth. In the same study, it was found that companies with an automated alert system significantly outperform their peers in the areas of customer retention, satisfaction, and winning back lost business. This graph shows the average yearly change in these variables among companies with alert systems versus those without alerts. A third way that organizations use VOC is to reward and recognize employees. This can be in the form of a formal link to compensation or to a program for recognizing and celebrating exceptional teams or individuals. Using VOC in this way can be a huge motivator. It creates accountability for ensuring that customers are satisfied. It promotes a customer-centric culture, and it encourages employees to go the extra mile for customers when the opportunity arises. So, who uses it? Well, VOC can be used for rewards and recognition at every level of the organization. Executives may have high-level VOC metrics included in their key performance indicators with a link to their bonus payout. Mid-level line managers are often accountable for VOC metrics within their area of control, which may be regions or districts or individual stores or contact centers. And it's becoming increasingly common to see frontline employees held accountable for VOC results. With the use of transactional surveys, customer feedback can be linked to specific employees and used for coaching, recognition, and performance evaluations. Most VOC programs include rewards and recognition sooner or later because it's an effective way to get people to take action. But it also creates a lot of problems. When people are held accountable for how they're rated by customers and when there's money involved, you can expect some counterproductive behaviors. For example, managers and employees may try to game the system. One way to do this is by pressuring customers to respond favorably to follow-up surveys. If you've bought a new car recently, you've probably seen this firsthand. Salespeople in dealerships are often required to get perfect ratings from their customers with monetary consequences if they don't. We've seen many cases where customers are coached, pleaded with, and even sent surveys that have already been filled out by the dealerships. Another example of gaming the system took place in a large hotel. In this case, surveys were left in the room before checkout, asking guests to rate various departments like reception and food and beverage. The department that consistently got the highest scores was housekeeping. The reason was that the housekeeping staff were the ones responsible for collecting the surveys. Any survey with a low score for housekeeping mysteriously disappeared. You may also find cases of shooting the messenger where managers challenge the validity of the results, the size of the sample, the wording of the questions, etc. So just keep in mind that reward and recognition programs linked to VOC need to be designed carefully to get the results you want, and they can sometimes backfire in unexpected ways. Another common use for VOC is to support continuous improvement programs like Lean, Six Sigma, and TQM. Collecting VOC is an integral part of all of these methodologies, and it's generally called for at every stage in the process. It's used to identify critical to customer requirements, to uncover opportunities for improvement, to provide data for pilot projects and test labs, and to measure customer impacts from changes that are made to systems or services. It's also used as a control measure to monitor customer satisfaction after a program is launched. Anyone involved in continuous improvement or project management uses VOC in their work. So that includes project managers, operational managers, and process improvement practitioners. It also includes project sponsors and champions. Moving on, voice of the customer is used extensively in training and internal communications to help companies build a more customer-centric culture. Sometimes quantitative measures are used, but more often the actual words of employees are shared in order to bring the customer experience alive for employees. Using VOC in this way promotes a culture of storytelling, which is one of the most memorable and compelling ways to communicate. This application of VOC is used by human resources and training professionals, by corporate communications managers, and also by line managers in their team meetings and training sessions. Here's an example of how VOC is used for both training and culture building. This is a simple but powerful report that's distributed weekly by a large coffee company. You can probably figure out which one. The report goes out to every part of the organization, not just the stores. And it's used in team meetings, posted on bulletin boards, and talked about by executives, frontline workers, and everyone in between. Every day there's a new customer story taken from comment cards, emails, social media, and other sources. Throughout the week, there are a mixture of positive and negative examples. The positive stories identify the store or employee involved as a way to recognize success. The negative stories are anonymous because they don't want to embarrass people, just to help them learn. The point of the report is to start conversations around customer experiences and get employees talking about how positive customer experiences can be encouraged and how negative ones can be avoided. Here's another example used in a training program for a hotel chain. Customer stories about the hotel are taken directly from TripAdvisor. The employees in the training session discuss the stories in teams, do an analysis of what went wrong and why, and identify specific actions that could have been taken to achieve a more favorable outcome. The purpose is not only to make them aware of the customer point of view, but also to apply critical thinking to service challenges. You're probably already using VOC in similar ways in your own organization. As you build or expand your VOC program, you may want to look for more opportunities to capture and share stories like these. The final application we'll be looking at is using VOC to uncover insights about customers. VOC can be a rich source of data, and it can hold a lot of valuable information if you have the time and training to dig for it. Depending on what you're looking for, you may need to link your VOC to other data sources like customer account information, sales volume, or even employee engagement surveys. One approach to this type of research is to start with a hypothesis and test it using VOC. An example of a hypothesis would be that you think there's a correlation between customer satisfaction and employee satisfaction. Another approach is to conduct root cause analysis. Maybe you've seen an unexplained rise in complaints from customers on the East Coast, or you're experiencing high turnover within a particular market segment. By digging deeper into the data and perhaps conducting additional research, you may be able to find out what's causing these things to occur and to take effective action to correct them. Occasionally, you may just want to go fishing for insights with no real idea of what you'll find. These ahas aren't easy to come by, but they can be game changers if you manage to dig them out of the data. Along the same lines, you can look for signs of emerging issues and trends, things that are below the radar, but that have the potential to grow and become important. By spotting them early, you can act quickly to avoid problems and to exploit opportunities. Finally, VOC can be used to look back at specific events and learn from them through post-mortem analysis. You can analyze VOC after a new product launch, an ad campaign, or even an incident that went viral on the internet. Understanding how customers reacted to the event and what language they used can help you fine-tune your strategy for the next time. VOC is used for insights and deep dives by data analysts and process improvement practitioners in various parts of the organization. And it's used extensively by sales and marketing professionals to understand customer attitudes and intentions, and to look for ideas for new products and services. There are other applications for VOC data as well, but the ones we just covered should keep you busy for a while. Now let's look at some of the tools and reporting that go into a VOC program. Here's a basic toolkit. First, you'll need some way to conduct surveys. You can subscribe to do-it-yourself survey tools for not much money, but you may also want to install a more robust system, particularly if you're going to conduct transactional surveys. A good research vendor like NetReflector can help you manage this process. Second, you'll probably want business intelligence software for building and updating dashboards. Depending on the type of business you're in, you may need a way to gather internet buzz about your organization. Whether it's something simple like a free alert system or RSS feeds, or a more expensive program that uses sophisticated search and analytics tools, it's a good idea to include internet-based data in your VOC. If you're doing your own analysis, you'll probably want a statistics package like SPSS or SAS or Minitab. And if you want to create compelling reports, you're going to want to invest in one or more graphics programs as well as a desktop publishing program. Finally, many companies are installing voice or text analytics to look at unstructured data, or paying outside firms to do that work for them. However good your analytical skills, if you want to create interest and activity around VOC, you'll need to create compelling reports. There are three essential characteristics of an effective VOC report. First, it should inform the reader. That's obvious, but it should do this with the least amount of complexity possible. If your audience has to flip pages and read footnotes to understand the content, you've lost them. But providing information isn't enough. The report should also motivate the audience. It should get them energized. One way to do this is by including comparisons in the finding, because that will get their competitive juices flowing. Instead of telling someone what their average rating is, show them how it compares to the company overall, to their peers, to the competition, to a best-in-class benchmark. You can also motivate the audience by including some provocative quotes from customers. Finally, an effective report should include a clear call to action. Don't just tell the audience how they did, tell them what they need to do to improve, what the next steps should be. One of the most frequent criticisms of VOC reports is that they're not actionable. Providing some clear guidance will help overcome that objection. The VOC function is evolving quickly. In the old days, it was based mostly on surveys, which were run out of the market research department. The main output of a VOC study was a big report full of tables and statistics, which very few people read. Now we can capture and consolidate VOC much more quickly and frequently, and we can collect it from multiple sources, including sources that didn't exist before, like social media and online rating sites. and we can apply a wider range of analytical and reporting tools than we could just a few years ago. The result is that VOC reports are shifting from a research-based model to a more journalistic model. By that I mean that VOC analysts collect information from a variety of different sources in order to tell a story. They still use quantitative analysis, but they weave that information together with inputs from other sources. And increasingly they use journalistic techniques to make their reports more interesting and informative. Things like headlines, captions, call-outs and quotes, pictures and photographs, sidebars, and embedded audio or video clips of customers giving feedback. We've come a long way from the big report. Now there's a wide range of output being produced by VOC teams targeted to the specific needs of different stakeholders. Here's a few examples from a large retailer. Not a lot of spreadsheets. Instead, the reports combine graphics with quotes, word clouds, sentiment ratings, and other techniques to bring the voice of the customer alive. And they're targeted to different users like suppliers, brand managers, and sales executives. We'll return to the subject of effective reporting and communication in the VOC program session, but for now we'll end with some tips and best practices. First, make sure you have a good research partner. Of course, we hope that you'll choose NetReflector, but whoever you work with, make sure they really understand VOC and that they take the time to understand your company. Second, expect to spend a lot of time finding and cleaning up data. VOC teams usually don't control or manage all of the sources of data they collect. A lot of the information has to be pulled from different parts of the organization. To get it into a form that they can use for their own purposes, VOC practitioners may have to work with the data extensively. Next, a word is worth 1,000 pictures. We advise using lots of actual quotes from customers rather than relying on numbers and graphs to tell the whole story. Finally, as you get ready to build out your own VOC program, keep in mind that it is more than just a research function. You definitely need to apply research skills, but you'll also have to be part journalist and part diplomat. We'll visit that subject in detail in the third installment of this series, VOC Programs. We'll wrap up with a few words about NetReflector in case you didn't see the first session, VOC Basics. NetReflector is a full-service customer insights firm specializing in enterprise feedback systems and voice of the customer programs. We offer bundled VOC components that can get you started easily and that can be expanded as your program matures. We call this approach Vantage Point VOC Hubs. This is a comprehensive suite of modular feedback solutions designed to streamline VOC measurement programs. It's customizable and we can get it up and running in as little as 4 weeks. With this modular approach, you can address the full range of VOC touchpoints, including call center monitoring, customer and partner and employee satisfaction, website feedback, and social networking and other internet-based VOC. We also offer custom program design consulting, survey development, data collection and hosting, detailed reporting and analysis, and ongoing project management. And that concludes our second session, VOC Applications. Please join me for our final session, VOC Programs, where we'll look at how you can get VOC up and running in your own organization. Thank you, and if you have any questions about this series or about NetReflector, please go to our website at netreflector.com or give us a call at 866-927-1209. And if you'd like to contact me directly, please do at pgurney, that's P-G-U-R-N-E-Y, @netreflector.com. Thanks a lot.